Welcome back to my channel.
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. And I'm not really up to much today. I'm basically still doing a little housework, and I really don't need anything, or I don't have any reason to go out, so I decided to just stick around here today and get a few more things done. So I hope everyone out there is having a wonderful day. And it does look like we're having one of the most beautiful weather days that we've had this month so far. It's just gorgeous out there. And I consider going out for a stroll, but one thing led to another, and I got to responding to your comments, and pretty soon 10 a.m. Turned into 3 p.m. So, but I have to say that I'm enjoying all of your comments, and I'm having such a good time visiting all of your channels. Thank you so much for your support and your wonderful comments. I did want to address something today. I'm not sure it's all that important, but I thought I would mention it. I've heard online, on this platform, that I am pretending to be younger. And if for those of you who might have been around for my very earliest videos, or anywhere in between now and then, I have been quite upfront about my age. I am approaching my mid-60s. I'm not pretending to be a young person at all. So I don't know where that is coming from. I think that is very nasty and mean, but I really wanted to make sure everybody out there understood. And I'm sure I don't have to remind you, I'm not a young chick, so if that turns you off, I'm sorry. But I really do go by the content mostly that appeals to me and that interests me, and not about how I look, although I should pay more attention to how I look, I know. I'm not all that concerned about projecting a very youthful or glamorous image. I'm just glamorous enough that I can get that message across, maybe, but I'm not much of a makeup person. I don't dress up a lot, and so that's against me, isn't it? So unfortunately, those things no longer really appeal to me as they did when I was maybe in my 30s and 40s. So I'm sorry about that. I may do some more fashion content in the future because I do tend to buy some fashion items in the spring and summer, and so I like to share that with you. Anyway, what's on the agenda for today is that I will be going on with the last part of the Tori Stafford story, and we're going to be dealing with, we're going to be focused on the situation regarding the main perpetrator, which I would absolutely, well, there were two main perpetrators, but one was just as violent as the other in different ways. And so I would say that Terry Lynn had a very troubled past and probably is still quite troubled. And I really want to reflect on that because I want to reveal to everybody what can actually create these monstrous types of people that like to inflict such extreme pain and demise on other people. And so what I want to do is just go over her childhood, and so we'll be discussing a few more details later on, and that's about it. And so in case you haven't already all heard, I'm not going to be making too many more pizzas in the near future. I want to focus on my starch solution meals, and tonight I'll be making another soup, and it's nothing you haven't seen before, so in case you haven't caught it yet, stick around. I'll be making another one of my famous vegetable soups, and I'll be starting that in about an hour or so. And so until then, I'm going to be busy doing some other housework. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hi guys, so I'm back. My soup is on the stove, and I thought I would get back into this case, the Tori Stafford story. And where we left off last night was that they discovered the body after 3 months, and I went over some of the gruesome details regarding the perpetrators and how the mother, because of her unfortunate circumstances, came to become a suspect until, of course, Terry Lynn was arrested on the 12th of April and 2009, and the police began to extract more and more information, but still they were not sure until the body was discovered. They were not completely sure that Tara McDonald was completely out of the picture. Now guys, what I want to impress upon you was that for a police station or a police jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it, to not issue an Amber Alert when an 8-year-old child goes missing right from the very schoolyard, or they saw her walking down the street in the footage. Now, I don't understand the timing of it. It was very poorly, the investigation was very poorly initiated. No Amber Alert. How can that be? In a province that has the highest human trafficking rate in the entire country. And it has always been like that, guys. If you're following these cases, they've all occurred in the same single one province. And so I may look at other cases in the other provinces. I'm not sure. But for now, I want to stick with this city. It's basically all on the outskirts of one city and in one province. How could they not issue an Amber Alert? I'm not asking this out of curiosity. Picture me screaming with rage. I'm not. Just because a child is the daughter of the parents she has or lives in a particular neighborhood, that doesn't indicate that she's any less deserving of an Amber Alert than the kid uptown is. You know what I'm saying? Look at how well the Alison Perot case was, although it did take years to arrest the person because he was just not under their thumb. It did take years. It did take years, but they were much more efficient at looking for her and, issuing an alert. I don't know when exactly the Amber Alert system came into law, but it was never really that fully or that thoroughly used in cases like this leading up to this case. I think that after 2009, they still use the Amber Alert, but it's the sort of alert that if you don't know who the child is, you won't know who or what to look for. So basically, it's still a very necessary alert system, but it's not very well executed, if you know what I'm saying. And this investigation for Tori Stafford itself was very poorly timed. It was just, subjected to massive public criticism, and I think it's only right that we keep speaking out against this ineffective way of reporting and investigating. So for now, enough of that. So the failure to issue that Amber Alert was probably the primary reason why this child, Tori Stafford, who was only 8 years old, was brought into another region of the province and murdered. And that probably would not have been made possible or so easy had the Amber Alert been executed at the proper time. And so, no, I'm going to keep harping on it. But so the circumstances surrounding the case itself and the missing child were all very mysterious. And there was not only that it was poorly established without an Amber Alert system, but there was a public ban. Why? Why is there a public ban on children who go missing for the media to know? Why? Do we want more children to go missing? What is this? I don't understand why there would have been a public ban. It wasn't lifted until the following December of 2010. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. Now, what I understand is that Tara McDonald suffered a great deal under the massive criticism that was amassed by the public against her. But she really, yes, she contributed. Like the McCanns, in a technical sense, did contribute to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann when they left their children unattended. And, although they had nothing to do with the actual abduction, at least that's what I understand, still, they were subjected to a massive amount of public criticism. However, should we reserve all that negative energy for, dealing with the real perpetrators? Or should we insist on going back to harp on the flaws and weaknesses of Tara McDonald? I think there isn't anything that we can say to her that she hasn't already said to herself. And like I said before, guys, parents have problems. And in my opinion, Tori was a very happy and well-adjusted child. She had what she needed. She wasn't abused. She wasn't neglected. Well, for the most part, she was very clean and well kept, and she was very well looked after. And so that's what I'm trying to say. She wasn't in a very bad or negative situation. She wasn't in turmoil. She wasn't in constant. From what I understand, she was not in constant contact with the Children's Aid Society or any other social services program, from what I understand. So I do know that Tara's addictions drew a lot of criticism, but that shouldn't have been what the media should have focused on. You know what I'm saying? They should have focused because they were getting ready to arrest the wrong person again. They should not have done that. They should have focused instead on catching the real perpetrators. Obviously, Tara McDonald was not, all the way out in that region. She was there talking to her mother when Tori went missing. She was there. She was in the vicinity of her home. She wasn't, way out 200 kilometers away. She was there, guys. She was in and out all day. And unfortunately, she should have gone to the school and she didn't. She should have picked up Tori. It was a new neighborhood for Tori and for Darren. Neither of them should have been left alone. And what I don't understand is why, if Tori and Darren could have walked home from the school, why it wasn't simple enough for the grandma to come and pick them up on foot. I don't understand this situation. There may have been something going on that day that we don't know about or was not brought to light. However, guys, when we look at cases like this and Christine's, we have to wonder just what certain police actually do come to investigate. Why they investigate it, when, and what biases the poor little victims are subjected to. Look at Christine Jessup. The murderer was right under their noses, literally, guys. And they didn't, just because they didn't suspect him. Who cares what their opinions were? They need to follow a certain protocol. And if they don't, things will fall apart. That's why it's very painful to interview people that you love and you have such a deep affection and respect for, simply because, you have to stick with the agenda. If a person has contact with the victim, they should be interviewed. And I'm sure Darren and his grandma and the father, Rodney, were all interviewed along with Tara. So what I don't understand is why Calvin Hoover got away when the police had so much time and opportunity. They had 40 years to investigate it, and they didn't do it. It took an ancestry kit to do it for them. Something that the police would not do because of their faulty judgment, their faulty thinking. Okay, it wouldn't have brought back Christine. It won't bring back Tori. But this system of BS has to be reformed. It has to be reformed. This should be all computerized, and people like police should be willing to sit down with suspects or people who were close to victims, and yes, ask questions, but regard their behavior as more important than the answers to their questions, which may be totally false. So, I do know that it took 10 years for Alison Perot's murderer to get caught. But he was there, guys, just the way that Calvin Hoover and Terry Lynn and Michael Rafferty were. They were, Michael Rafferty was not a criminal at that point. I think that might have been one of his first 1 or 2 episodes. He had a good record, a clean record, although I know now that he was involved in drugs, and so I don't understand how he had such a goody two-shoes record. You know what I mean? He wasn't that young. He was 28, the same age that Calvin was when he attacked Christine. And so I don't know how old Francis Carl Roy was. I should check that out. But anyway, these guys were all in their 20s. And they were known. They were known to police. And because Terry Lynn was hanging out with Michael Rafferty so often in the last 3 months before Tori lost her life, I think that more attention might have been paid to her much earlier. But they did arrest her on unrelated charges on April the 12th, just a few days after, about 4 days after that Tori went missing. And so it was then that things began to come out. But they hadn't found the body. And so Terry Lynn's name came up in various tips, I guess from the public, immediately after Tori went missing, and after police found that she did have another outstanding warrant, and so was actually, I made a mistake, she was arrested on May 12th, not April 12th, for a parole violation. And so, just like Francis Carl Roy, she was out on parole when this happened. And now, Michael Rafferty had visited her at the Youth Detention Center. What was he doing with her? She was just a child, a troubled child, but she should not have been with Rafferty at all. And she had to reassure him. That's why he went to see her, guys. When they took her into the juvenile detention center, she had to basically cower and assure him that she wouldn't implicate him if police asked her about Tori. However, let me just say this, and I will explain in a bit. The reason for that is because there was a very good reason that Michael Rafferty needed to fear, because it was Terry Lynn's background and context of horrific and violent abuse and cunning sneakiness. And so we'll get there in a minute, but Michael Rafferty did commit a horrific and horrendous crime against a poor, sweet, innocent, beautiful, vivacious, life-loving, warm-hearted, innocent child. He had no business being anywhere near her, or any other child for that matter. And so during the period of Tori's so-called disappearance between March and July, Tara McDonald was devastated, and she was kicking herself. She was really down on herself because of all the abuse that she was being subjected to. She knew that she had indirectly a hand in what happened to Tori. So before Tori's body was discovered in July, Tara McDonald upped her heroin. She went back to another street drug that she had used previous to 2005, and that was heroin. She upped it to 80 milligrams a day, which kept Tori in the public eye. Because of Tara's inability to cope, I don't know what I would be addicted to if anything like that ever happened in my life. Certainly I'm not addicted to anything now, but I would need help too. I wouldn't know how to get through it. But what the public, what the media, remember Amanda Knox, what the media was doing to her was making her out to be a suspect. Why? Because the police didn't act quickly enough. They checked one building for 5 days. And they had to blame something on Tara. After all, she was an addict. Oh, God. This is the most idiotic logic that I have ever tried to follow, but I have to do it if I want to think like an idiot. I have to go there. So what the public and what the media was making the public do was suspect Tara. Oh, well, she's a heroin addict. Well, maybe you're contributing to that. So 103 days before Tori was discovered, McDonald was already a suspect and crucified by the frickin' police and media who couldn't be bothered doing what they should have done in the first place. Why? Because they're so comfortable blaming people that just happen to be around. I don't understand that logic. I don't. And so, now, I did mention before that there were rumors confirmed in the courtroom testimony about the debt that Tara's boyfriend incurred with dealers when he didn't pay. And so, guys, I think this is what we're looking at. I think this, whatever came out in court, they can't confirm something when there's no evidence. And nobody is going to leave a paper trail for substance purchases. But use your heads. The drugs were unpaid for, so they took Tori. I don't care what the media or the police or the judge says. They took Tori because of that. And Terry Lynn was involved. Or at least she knew people who were involved. That's fair enough to assume. And the reason why I say that is because she was a severe addict herself. Now, I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm not saying that to be cruel. There had been no ransom demands, but there was a ransom there. That's the way I see it, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Nothing needs to be proved and carved in stone. Nothing will be carved in stone for something that vicious. And that's another thing that has to come with the court system. You can't expect criminals to leave paper trails and let them go free because there's no evidence. In this case, that's not what happened. The murderers were put away, yes. But I'm sure that those two perpetrators had something to do with that bad deal. And Tara McDonald needed to understand that no man was going to come riding along in a white horse and shining armor and save the day for her. No, he was going to make it worse. And he did. And so, because Tara was high that day on Oxycontin, um, uh, and she was reluctant to go to the police immediately because of her state. She tried to later deny that she was reluctant to involve the police, and that's one of the reasons why they came to suspect her. And just because they suspected her, that doesn't mean that it excused them from that ridiculous search that they called an investigation. That wasn't an investigation. Just because the mother was on some prescription drug, that doesn't mean they were excused from investigating the disappearance of a child. Okay, I'm sorry. So, the inference from them was that she was alarmed that her, her substance addiction and abuse would show. And probably it would have made things worse. But it was all out in the open anyway. And so another reason why she later was criticized, even after the perpetrators were caught, was that she didn't cry in court. Well, she had been through a lot of substance abuse. I think maybe that can do something to you. I don't know. Maybe she was trying to be strong. I'm sure she didn't like what happened at all. Just because a person doesn't show their true emotions, it might mean that they're very uncomfortable. If it were me in that situation, I would be afraid to lift a finger for fear of being judged. And so she didn't weep in court. She was very strong, and I commend her for that, because she needed that strength. And so she wed at 17 years old, guys, and she had been off and on substances all throughout her life, but finally she did come clean. And I have to commend her being under that amount of stress. She did succeed in doing at least that. And so, however, she only testified for under 1 hour. So that judgment of her was very hastily drawn. And those conclusions were very hastily made regarding her character. And so, a courtroom isn't always the best way to get to know a person, is it? Okay, let's continue with the story. Let's go and switch to MichaelRafferty. We're going to be discussing these three suspects throughout this episode, because it's important to understand the situations that arise when children are allowed to grow up without any morals or scruples. And one way to do that, to create a monster of a person, will be to let them get away with literal murder. And so about 9 years after the conviction and murder, the conviction of his kidnapping and murder of the 8-year-old Tori, MichaelRafferty was again accused of another crime by his own relative, who said he added to his mother's suffering, intense suffering, from behind bars when he began to extort money from her. I would say, who cares? Because she raised him like that. I'm sure she didn't deserve that. I don't say that all monsters are created by their parents. No, but from, what I understand, he had never had to answer to anything. And I'm sure that he didn't go through life like a saint. I'm sure he didn't just wake up one day with a clean criminal record and say, yes, today I'm going to become a criminal. No, guys. His character was tainted. And it would have been up to family to try to call some attention to that. But of course, he was 28 years old at that point. So when Rafferty was moved from a maximum security jail to a medium security institution in Quebec, Rodney Stafford became enraged, and rightfully so. Rodney's anger at that incident was very well documented, and it's something that, okay, it deserves a lot of media attention and focus, but you should have done that when Tori was missing, like at 3:30 p.m. on April the 8th, 2009, right? So Rodney's anger, it really sparked a lot of controversy, and no, he was right to think that. But however, the reason being for that switch from one prison to another was that it had a very good treatment for offenders like Rafferty. I really doubt that. I really, really do doubt that, because unless you have some sort of drug that can control those thoughts, that will stay with Rafferty forever. I at this point, I don't think there is any such thing as rehabilitation successfully. You know what I'm saying? And what sparked that move was that, get this, guys, Terry Lynn was moved to an indigenous healing lodge from Ontario to Saskatchewan, reversed by the federal government after another public outcry. So she was put back, but Rafferty was allowed to go. Isn't that usually the case in these things? You know what I mean? In these situations, one partner gets a little bit more of a lenient rap than the other one does. However, there may be a reason for that, and I'm going to be getting to that in a second. So he also, Rafferty, like Terry Lynn, was also very addicted to prescription pills, OxyContin. And if he wasn't a dealer himself, I'm pretty sure that whoever he got the pills from was the same dealer that worked with Terry Lynn, Carol, and Tara. So, what a mess, guys. It was not a very nice situation. I don't like thinking and talking about lifestyles like that. For me, to think of a lifestyle like that is worse than a death. It's worse than a murder. It's not life. So when I hear about a person abusing and addicted, I'm speechless, because I don't see hope. If they are that down in life, what was Rafferty so miserable about? I think he had a great life. At least it's been kept out of the papers, if that isn't the case. So, but he was a very horrific, abusive, and violent womanizer, and tried to pimp out his own girlfriend, which was not Terry Lynn, another girl. And he actually lived off her earnings. Now, this is the sign of substance abuse. And so I think it was that addiction guys, that was driving him to insanity. And so if it weren't for Terry Lynn, he may have gotten away with all of that. I really think that Terry Lynn was the perpetrator in this entire situation. And yes, the court heard testimony that she tried to block out his statements. Maybe they weren't his statements. Maybe they were hers. I don't know. I'm just supposing that not everything that you hear on trial is going to be true. That's how it is, unfortunately. Stack of Bibles or no, I'm sure that Terry Lynn at that point couldn't have cared less about stacks of Bibles in a courtroom. I don't believe any of it. I don't know. Maybe it was the both of them, but I do think that Terry Lynn was the dominant part, and I do hope that she can, find some good within herself, because there's good in all of us. And I'm going to go on and explain this. This is very hard for me. So guys, what the police found were downloaded movies. Remember I was talking about those movies that began to come out in the 70s and 80s. Horrible movies that should have put all the directors and producers behind bars for life. And so they found all of these movies that showed actual murders on screen. Obviously, the actors and actresses died right there. And so what Rafferty liked to do was to choke. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to get into this anymore. But in other words, they later found, when they dug into Rafferty's past, that yes, there was a problem with him and his behavior toward children, which was never reported to the police. If it were me witnessing that, I would have been the first one. And I'm sure the police would have said, well, do you have footage? And by the way, I think that when police want to see footage of stuff like that, I think they need help. Rafferty, when Tori's brother, big brother Darren, went to court, he had a letter that he had written. It was a written statement, and it was read out by the Crown Attorney, and who happened to be called Stephanie Venn. And so Rafferty did appear to get emotional, and he actually cried. I don't know if that was an act, but I really do think that it was the substance abuse that did that to Rafferty. It probably, those movies and the substance, what a horrible way to go in life, guys. I mean, why do people do that? Only people who have deep-seated emotional problems would realize that their penchant for that is a cry for help. And Rafferty probably could have avoided all this if he had known that. Maybe he would have gone for help. Maybe he would have, but it's very hard for these perpetrators to get help and try to stop, because then that means that they're going to ultimately go behind bars because they have to tell everybody. And that's the problem, guys. That's the problem. That's why, if there were a pill that you could take to make all this go away, this has to be reformed so badly. Anyway, Darren had said in the letter that he missed his little sister so much, and that they used to laugh and even cry together at home, at school. They used to play together. And Darren said that he thought that his heart had been ripped right out. And so Darren began to experience, out of guilt for what happened to his sister, low self-esteem and anxiety. And he could not walk alone after that. He was always looking over his shoulders, just a little 11-year-old child. And he could not sleep because of nightmares, and he could not be alone or by himself. And so apparently he felt guilty for not going to pick up Tori, but he was supposed to go and pick her up. So I don't know, that it's not clear exactly what that arrangement was that day. I'm sure that he felt guilt. I don't know if somebody purposely distracted him that day, like one of the drug dealers, in order to go after Tori. I don't know. I don't know, guys. But I know that there's more to this. It's too much of a coincidence that that drug debt was not paid and that Tori went missing. That's, to me, is not a coincidence. Think what you want, but not to me. So, okay. So Darren really got the short end of the stick there because he was still a child and he had to witness all that and go through all that. What his mother, obviously he must have realized his mother could not have been involved. Maybe he was afraid of his mother. Can you imagine the nightmares that child must have had? And of course, Tara was not involved. Her boyfriend, yes, he brought the whole family down. And I hope to God that she got him out of her life. I really do. Because he's bad news. No matter where he is today, that James Goris, it was bad news through and through. And I think he brought down the entire Stafford and McDonald families. And he really, they don't, see guys, with substances and abuse, perpetrators are not going to go after you. They're going to go after your children. You have to know that. So be so careful of what you do, especially around children. Be so careful of who you deal with. But if there was ever any sort of mom that Tara was not to Tori, that would be a child abuser. Tara loved her daughter and her son more than life itself, but she was having a rough patch. And my guess would be she had a sicko for a partner in her life that put her through hell. And I don't care what anybody says. She should not have been with him. I hope to God she got him out of her house. Anyway, Terry Lynn's childhood is quite another matter, of course. And so guys, when I'm explaining this, think back to Calvin Hoover and the animosity he felt against Christine because of his wife Heather. This is how badly abused children become monsters. And nobody knows who it's going to be unless you can see the signs. And sometimes there just aren't any. So Terry Lynn's childhood was badly marked and scarred with misfortune. She was never lucky. She never had it good. She was born to a stripper in the same city, Woodstock, Ontario, in 1990. Her birth mother just handed her over to Carol, who happened to be the stripper's best friend, another fellow stripper. I wonder what the deal there was. A kid for money? I don't know. I don't know if Carol ever actually adopted Terry Lynn. I don't know. It's not out there. That information is kept dark. Um, Guys, this is so hard. So Carol became Terry Lynn's mother, and they began to live all over Ontario, and in areas close to where Tori was found. So guys, remember that. They lived in Guelph, they lived in Hamilton, North Bay, Perry Sound, and so Muskoka, and so I think it was near Guelph. I'm not sure, but I would imagine it was near Guelph, in that area, general area of Guelph. Not right in Guelph, but maybe around Guelph that Tori was found. And so that, for Terry Lynn, all those moves meant a great many different schools, a great many different homes, neighborhoods, whatever have you. Her attendance was quite, her school attendance was quite infrequent due to bullying, maybe other things as well, because she was a stripper's daughter. And even though one gave the child to another, she was still a stripper's daughter. And so at 7 in Guelph, the Children's Aid Society became a permanent fixture in Terry Lynn's life. And so that would mean that she was either being neglected and abused, or that she was acting out in ways that were horrific. And Terry Lynn began to do drugs at 8 years old. So Terry Lynn began at 8 years old to smoke weed, and then she moved on to harder street drugs. By 18, of course, she was a serious drug-addicted substance abuser, and at that point she was addicted to OxyContin. Her childhood was spent at 2 foster homes besides Carol's. In her teenage years, it was basically juvenile hall. And so from 12 to 17, she was in numerous fights and assaults, 6 altogether, and she ended up in youth detention every time. And she was basically, guys, in perpetual trouble, because even when she went to youth detention, juvenile hall, she would get into more trouble. And so, you know, those places can be so horrific and frightening. And so, of course, you know what I was saying before, it just perpetuates the whole pattern over and over again. And so these kids never get help. Okay, they are locked up for their own good and for the safety of others, but the treatment is not forthcoming. You know what I'm saying? So she used to write long, vicious letters in her diary where she would threaten people who wronged her and go on and on about slaughter. And so, you know, guys, it must have been very, very horrific for her to be at that point at 8 years old where she couldn't handle her mental state, the reality of what she was faced with. 8 years old. You know, life, whether she was inside the juvenile hall or at home, at a foster home, was horrific for her. In 2006, Terry Lynn got into a fight with her mother when she was 16, Carol, and she punched Carol in the eye. And so she went to juvie hall. And she, a little before that, she actually microwaved a tiny, one of their family dogs, a tiny dog. She microwaved it. At the time of that horrible act, she claimed and lied that the dog was attacked by another animal and they had to put him down. He was tortured. She put him in, burnt him, and took him out and tortured him. So when you listen to her testimony that she blocked out this guy's statements, this is just right up her alley. I feel so horrible for. I see Tori Lynn as that frightened, alone 8-year-old child struggling to get out of her horrible reality, and I think for Tori Lynn, she will always remain an 8-year-old child struggling because she doesn't see the good in herself. No, it's hard to see good in her right now, of course. But that is the only way to overcome all of this criminal behavior. Of course, you have to be able to do that. You have to have the potential to do that. If you don't have the potential because you've never had a very loving home, or maybe because she was always faced with the fact that her real mother never wanted her or could never care for her properly. So guys, this is what creates a monster. Don't have people who have families because they think it's the right thing to do and then end up doing stuff like this to their kids. I don't know what Carol did to her. I don't know. I don't know what other people were allowed to do to her when she was a child. But by 8, she'd had it. She'd had it. And so it could be that she knew that Tori was in a new neighborhood like she was so many times during her own childhood, and she wanted to destroy Tori's life. She wanted to make Tori suffer as much as she had. And so when we see the autopsy reports on what happened to Tori, all those head injuries, she was bashed in with a hammer and her ribs were all cracked. I don't have a problem thinking, of course, it was Tori Lynn that did that. And I also think that it was she who wanted this done to Tori. Okay, MichaelRafferty wanted to do that too, but she was the leader, guys. I don't think MichaelRafferty would have known of Tori's existence had it not been for Tori Lynn. And I also think that Tori Lynn had something to do with that bad, or some knowledge about that bad drug deal that Tara's boyfriend ended up not paying for her, you know what I mean? So, to me, that part is very much unsolved, and I don't think that the trial was good enough. I don't think that what they found out was good enough, because certainly all those other little lurid facts that are not clear and very obscure mean a lot to what happened to Tori. So in my opinion, I don't think that, okay, they found the perpetrators, yes, but we still have so many unanswered questions about all those other things that led up to the crime. And, you know, if you want to understand a criminal mind and prevent it, you have to understand those things. And so, guys, this is the end of the vlog, and it was a hard one for me to do. I believe the next case will be sharing Morningstar Keenan. It's a very old and vintage case, still unsolved. And so, well, unsolved to the point where the perp is free. So I will be going into that. I don't know if I'll do it tomorrow or the next evening. I don't know when, but that will be our next case. In any situation, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you, I guess, tomorrow.